I used to love mornings in the city. The sound of buses sighing at every stop, the smell of coffee shops waking up, and the early light brushing over glass towers, it all used to make me feel alive. I would walk to work with my earbuds in, clutching my cup of latte like it was a symbol of purpose. Back then, I thought I was going somewhere. I had plans, ambition, and a sense of control. But control is fragile. It only takes one global downturn, one round of layoffs, one unexpected email to remind you how small you really are in the grand system of things. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. The office was colder than usual, the air conditioner hummed too loudly. When I opened my inbox, there was a message from HR with the subject line, "Important notice regarding your position." My heart sank before I even clicked it. I didn't even need to read the words. I could feel the end pressing against my skin like a cold wind. Still, I opened it. "Due to the current economic conditions, we regret to inform you." I didn't finish reading. My eyes blurred. The hum of the office vanished into a kind of numb silence. Around me, people whispered and packed their things. I wasn't the only one. That made it worse, knowing that grief could echo in so many bodies at once. When I walked out of that building, the city didn't feel alive anymore. It felt like it was holding its breath. At first, I told myself it was temporary. I had savings, I had experience, I had time. I spent my mornings sending out resumes and my afternoons refreshing my email like a gambler waiting for a lucky card. Weeks passed. Silence. Then months. The bills started to whisper threats. Rent, electricity, internet, groceries. I learned to measure food by days instead of flavors. Instant noodles became a loyal companion. Coffee became a luxury. Every morning, I'd look out my apartment window at the skyline that used to fill me with hope. The same skyline now looked like a wall, tall, cold, and unreachable. The city didn't care who I was before. My friends tried to help at first. They'd send messages, "Hang in there, you'll find something soon." But as the economy kept sinking, they had their own problems. One lost her job, another was forced to move back with her parents. One stopped replying altogether. I didn't blame them. When the world collapses, everyone clings to their own survival. There were days when I didn't leave my bed. Days when my phone stayed dark and silent, when even brushing my teeth felt like an impossible mission. I used to be someone who wore clean suits and spoke in meetings. Now, I was someone who avoided mirrors. I lost track of time. The seasons changed, but I didn't. One night, the power went out. I sat in the dark, listening to the faint city noise outside, sirens, distant laughter, a car passing by. I felt like I was watching life happen through glass. That was the first time I cried, not the small kind of crying that feels cleansing, but the deep, wordless kind that shakes your ribs. It wasn't just about the job. It was about identity. Who was I without a place to go in the morning? Without a paycheck? Without a sense of worth? I had built my life around the idea that productivity meant value. When the job disappeared, so did I. I remember whispering to myself, "I don't know who I am anymore." And the silence didn't answer back. Then came the eviction notice. 3 months late on rent. The landlord wasn't cruel, he was just practical. I packed my things into 2 suitcases and a backpack. I left behind my desk, my plants, my framed certificates. It was raining when I stepped out for the last time. The city smelled of wet asphalt and loss. I stayed with a friend for a week, then another for a few days. I told them I was figuring things out, but really I was drifting, surviving on borrowed couches and borrowed hope. At night, I'd scroll through job listings that looked the same, experience required. Immediate availability. Competitive candidates only. I didn't feel competitive. I felt invisible. One morning, I wandered into a park I used to pass every day when I had work. I sat on a bench watching people jog, walk their dogs, and sip smoothies. They all looked so certain, so anchored. An old man sat beside me, humming softly to himself. His clothes were worn but clean. He had a paper bag full of breadcrumbs and was feeding pigeons like it was the most important job in the world. "You look tired," he said without looking at me. "I guess I am," I replied. He nodded slowly, tossing more crumbs. "You know, I used to work in a bank. Lost it all when the market crashed years ago. Thought my life was over." I looked at him, his calm eyes, the small smile. "What did you do?" He shrugged. "I started feeding birds. And then I started fixing things for people in the neighborhood. Little by little, I found a way to live again. Not the same way, but still a way." I didn't know why, but his words settled in me like sunlight breaking through clouds. That was the first time I felt something other than despair. I started walking more after that. I explored parts of the city I had ignored when I was busy working, the narrow alleys with street vendors, the small bookstores tucked between tall buildings, the river path where old women sold flowers. The city hadn't changed, I had. And maybe, I thought, I could change again. I volunteered at a local food drive one weekend, handing out meals to people who had it worse than I did. It felt strange at first, like I was pretending to be useful again. But when I saw the gratitude in their eyes, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't useless. I still had something to give. Days turned into weeks, and I kept showing up. The coordinator, a woman named May, started trusting me with more tasks, organizing boxes, managing volunteers, even helping write a small funding proposal. One evening, as we packed up, she asked, "You ever thought of doing this kind of work full-time?" I laughed. "Is that even a thing?" She smiled. "It can be. Non-profits always need people who care. And you're good at this." That night I went home, to the tiny room I was renting now, and for the first time in months, I opened my laptop not to search for jobs in finance, but to look at community work, social programs, and NGOs. It felt foreign but exciting. Like maybe life wasn't about climbing ladders, but finding solid ground. The next few months were a blur of small steps. I found a part-time job at a local outreach center, helping families affected by the same economic downturn that had broken me. The pay was modest, but it was enough. Every story I heard reminded me how fragile we all are, and how strong we can be too. There was a single mother who lost her job at a hotel and started selling homemade bread. A young man who slept in his car while studying online. An elderly couple who survived on their garden's vegetables. They all kept going. So I did too. Slowly, I began to rebuild. I moved into a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it had light and quiet mornings. I bought second-hand furniture and a cheap coffee maker. I started jogging again, feeling my lungs expand in the cool dawn. Sometimes, I'd pass by my old office building. It was strange to look up and not feel bitterness anymore. That chapter was gone, but I wasn't. The city still buzzed with chaos, traffic, sirens, construction, but beneath it all, there was something softer. Resilience. I realized I had found something I never had before, purpose not built on status, but on meaning. One evening, May and I organized a small event, a neighborhood cleanup followed by a free meal for anyone who showed up. As the sun set, people gathered, laughing and talking like old friends. Music played from a cheap speaker. Kids chased each other around. I stood there watching it all, and a thought came quietly. I found my place again. It wasn't the life I planned, but it was a life that fit me better. When the old man from the park passed by, feeding his pigeons as always, he caught my eye and nodded. I smiled back. He didn't need to say anything. I understood. Sometimes I still think about the person I was, the version of me who measured success in numbers and titles. She was lost when the economy fell, but maybe she needed to be. Because losing yourself isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's how you begin again. The city hasn't gotten easier. The world still wobbles between uncertainty and hope. But now I know that even when everything falls apart, I can rebuild, not into who I was, but into who I'm meant to be. And on quiet mornings, when I sip my coffee and the city hums back to life, I smile. Because I'm still here. Still standing. Still me. And somehow, that's enough.